Welcome to Hedgehog Hollow and welcome to Sunday Stamping with Elizabeth Craft Designs. This week I'm going to show you how to make a metallic watercolour wash. I'm also going to show you how to bronze up butterflies and add this lovely sentiment by embossing on vellum. We've got lots of tips and techniques to show you, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do for today's video is use the Prima metallic accents. They're a lovely metallic watercolour cake and they have some great mica metallic accents in them. We're going to be using two colours from this and we're going to be doing slightly different watercolour background to how we usually do it. So I'm going to add my droppers of water as we normally do. And I find that this just expedites that process. It starts to activate some of those pigments in the colours, ready for us to do our washes. I'm actually just going to use two colours. This is called Asterial and Blue Aura. And that's going to give us that beautiful background for our dragonflies. I have my Faber-Castell collapsible water dish with all of my clean water in, and I have my Rinse Well here for my dirty water. So this Rinse Well, if you haven't seen it before, this here is full of clean water. And then this little pull down here I can use to wash out my paintbrushes, and when it gets dirty I just press the plug and it goes into the container underneath. So it saves you having to run backwards and forwards for multiple water pots. I really love this tool. I've got two paintbrushes, one's a number 24 round and the other is a number 16 flat. I will link them up below the video for you, but just so that you can watch them. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my clean water and I'm going to really soak my paper. The paper is the Canson Watercolor Cold Press, £140, and I have them pre-cut into quarters, which is a bit larger than carved front sides. So that gives us a little bit of room to add tape, and if there's any areas that we're not happy with, we can often just trim those out. So once your water is, or your cardstock rather, is quite saturated, we don't want it pulled, we just want it to be quite saturated. We're going to start picking up some colour. So I'm going to go in with my large round brush, I'm going to activate that blue and load up my brush, and I'm going to start adding droplets. And you can get some really fun techniques on here. I also find that if it's not kind of spreading out in spidery veins enough, you might find you want to just add a little bit of extra water with your spray bottle. So again, I'm going to do a bit more on the blue. And sometimes you need to pick up a bit more paint, and you may even want to drop it in a little bit of extra water into your colours. So I'm going to really load these up because I want that washy background. And I'll link up these dropper bottles. They're plastic. They now have a black top rather than the white top, but they're absolutely fantastic to use. And if you don't use any of this, anything that you have put the water on will dry back in, it just evaporates out and your watercolour cakes dry out. So I'm going to clean off my brush, and that's in my Rinse Well water, and I'm going to just empty that out because there's a lot of pigment in my brush. And then I'm going to make sure it's got nice clean water in it in my clean water pot. And you can check that out if you think it's draining clear. And I really do want these to be clear because I don't want contamination yet between the two, is you can just brush it onto a piece of kitchen towel, and I can still see there's a little bit of blue, so I'm going to go back in for a little bit more clean water and try it again, and now I can see that that's nice and clear. So now I'm going to use that lovely greeny colour, and this would make great ocean backgrounds. You could make backgrounds for mermaids, for galaxies. You can go over the top of this with some great colours as well. You could go over it with some of the black that's in here and it would give you a super background for a galaxy. Now I'm going to just stand my paintbrush to the edge and I'm going to move this around a little bit. I'm going to let it do it itself. I don't want to be adding in anything just yet. I'm not the most patient crafter and I'm really not great when I just let things kind of do their own thing. But for this one, you really do get the best effects if you just let it move around itself. So you can see there how it's moving around and how we're getting those really fun effects. You also notice there's a little bit of the area that's really quite stubborn. And I'm now going to go back in with a little bit more blue because I want the blue to be the dominant colour. And I'm going to fill in anywhere that I feel is a bit too light. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to move that around and grab some more colour in there. Again, I'm going to just add a little spritz just to make that area move a bit more, because it was a little bit drier. And what you get is this lovely watermarked, and you get almost like some marbling in there as well. There's a little bit area here that's a little bit dry. And you can keep playing around until you're happy with those colours. Now if you're going to leave this to air dry, you will find it will take a long time to dry. And I'm just taking and I'm adding a few more bits of green. And I'm just tapping the end of my paintbrush just like this. It's slightly out of the shot, but you can see there what I'm doing. And I'm going to do the same with the blue, just to add those little bits in. And you'll see, depending on how much water's in the area, depends on the reaction you get. And I'm just moving this colour around. So once you are happy with the colours that you have, the marbling effects that you have, you can then dry this piece off. And I'm pretty much, I think, getting to where I want to be. So I'm going to dry this off, and then we'll come back and have a look at it if we want to add anything more, and otherwise we can carry on with our stamping. This is my finished piece after I've dried it. I used my Ranger Heated craft tool to dry my piece. This gives you the same high temperature as an embossing tool, but what it also does is it doesn't give you that really harsh flow of air, so it doesn't move all your pools of water around, particularly when you've got something that you're really happy with. I ended up adding a few spritzes here and there as I dried, because I ended up with a bit of a river down this middle strip, but you can see how beautifully it came up. I'm going to lift it up to the camera here so you can see how all of those sort of marbles and watermarks and droplets and things all came up really, really beautifully. The first thing I want to do is I want to trim off my white edge, and then we can see where we are at with regards to trimming it down for card front size. So I'm just going to trim these off. I love this. This is a Cutterpede if you haven't seen me use it before. It comes in a mini card size, and it also comes in a 12 by 12 size, and I'll link both of those below the video and of course in the related blog posts for you. So we now are at 5 1/4, which is perfect, by just under 4. So I'm actually just going to take a tiny little slither off of here just so that I have an even border all the way around. The other great thing with this tool is if you line it up here, you take about 1/4 of an inch away, which is often perfect for matting distances. So this is our base piece, and I've already got a card front piece here. This is half an 8.5 by 11 cut lengthways, and I'm going to fold it in half to make our card base. It's Nina Solar White, and again, of course, I will link it all up for you. I have my bone folder here to just firm up that fold. I can go ahead already and start putting this down. I've pre-cut some foam pieces beside me from my large foam tape rolls, and I'm just going to start putting them on. I have a pair of scissors that live in the drawer with my foam tape, and I also keep lots of spare pieces actually just on top of the foam roll that I can pick up during videos or just when I need them. And then I know that these scissors are super sharp, and if they get any sticky on, I clean them off probably occasionally, maybe every 3 months or so with some Goo Gone, but they just sit on top of that foam tape roll. So we can take off our backing, like this. And we can stick this onto our card front, because the assembly is just really, really easy, but it looks beautiful. And of course you can use it for so many different occasions. I'm going to use it this way up, and I'm going to center it with my matting like that. So that's our card base ready. The next thing I want to do is I want to stamp out my sentiments. I'm using Dream Sentiments from Elizabeth Craft Designs. There's some lovely things on here, all about dreams coming true, love, happiness. So whether you're using it for a new baby, or perhaps you're using it for congratulations, or someone off to college, it works in all sorts of different ways. And I'm going to use my Tim Holtz platform. I have a piece of vellum that I've pre-cut here, and I'm going to stamp this down with some Versamark. So you can also still put your magnets just on these corners, and I'll make sure on the screen right now you'll see some links of 10 top tips to use with your Tim Holtz platform and other platforms, and also how I added this foam piece and it still stamps perfectly. It is personal preference whether you want to use the foam in there, but I actually like it for the more detailed stamps, and I find it saves me time in the long run. So I'm going to stamp this down with some Versamark. And I'm just kind of looking to the side to see how well that seems to have stamped out really nicely. I'll pop my platform to the side. And I have some Ranger copper embossing powder and of course my little embossing powder tray. And I'm going to put this into here. And this works really well. And again, these are great because they've got that little funnel on the side to help you put your powder back in. So I'm just going to make sure that there's no stragglers. A nice flick around the back. And just also wipe a few areas of my fingers. I'm going to heat this up with my embossing tool. The one tip I would give you with Vellum is to preheat your embossing tool. Normally when we go straight in with heat embossing, we go straight in with our tool, and on Vellum you'll end up with lots of wrinkles. If you wait for your tool to be hot, maybe 30 seconds to the side, and then go straight on there, the powder will cook, but you won't heat up the Vellum and get all of those wrinkles in there. So I'm just checking the temperature here. And I think it's pretty much ready to go. And the other thing with Vellum is you want to keep moving. It's not like other cardstocks where you can just kind of stay in the same place. You want to keep moving it as much as possible. There we go. So there's art, may all of your dreams come true. And again, I'm just going to grab my paper cutter and I'm going to trim this down to put onto our card. So I want a little bit above and below. And I have to say I'm doing this a little bit more by eye. And I'm going to cut the beginning side, and the other side I'm going to cut that curve with my snips. So I'm going to follow this scroll on the S of our dreams. So around about 1/8 of an inch. And I just like the idea of being able to follow that. Just for something a little bit different. And rather than a harsh edge, I'm just going to round that piece off as well, just so it looks a little bit more appealing on there. Now, of course, we can add our dragonflies as well. So our piece of vellum is going to go down here. And I'm going to use my favourite vellum tape. This is called W+ for vellum. It is reloadable. I know it's a little bit on the more pricey side for adhesives, but I can add a nice strip like that and you cannot see it at all. I'm going to lift this all the way up to the camera and hopefully it will snap into focus for you in just a second. There we go. You can't see any of that adhesive. If I put my hand underneath, you can't see that adhesive at all. So I'm really happy with this. It's taken me a long time to find something that works, but this really does. So that will stick on there nicely. I'm going to put a tiny bit just here as well. And now we can add our dragonflies. So I've already pre-cut some of my dragonflies here. And I cut 2 of each. And I'm going to be using my Nouveau embellishment mousse to add a little bit of decoration to them first of all. And then we will assemble them using glue dots. So let's, first of all, I'm just going to open this up. And I'm going to just touch my finger in here very lightly. And I'm even going to just touch it on the back of my hand because I don't want too much. I'm then going to just lightly apply my finger across the dragonfly. And what you'll see in a second, I'll hold them up of course so you can see them. And again, I'm going to touch, almost like, imagine you're applying a really light bronzer or foundation, something like that. And this just adds that little bit of sparkle to them. Now, if you had a clear one, you could use that. You could use gold, silver. Maybe if it was for a wedding anniversary, you could use the appropriate colour for the anniversary. So once you're happy, I'm going to do both of these with just a little bit of this coppery bronze colour, which will tie in really nicely with the embossing powder we used. And of course, by applying it with your finger rather than a tool, you have a much lighter touch. And even sort of the veins of your fingerprint add a little bit to the die cuts as well. Again, I'm just going to touch in there. And this will wash straight off afterwards. I've got a baby wipe just to hand, which I'll add on in just a second. So there are our dragonflies. I'll assemble them up, as I say, I'll lift them up just so that you can see them. I'm just going to clean this off of my fingers. And you can see how easily this comes off. I just don't want to transfer it onto our card in any way. So to assemble, we need our glue dots, which are just here. I'm going to take one glue dot, and I'm just going to use my nail to pick it up. And I'm going to place that into the middle of the bottom dragonfly rather. I'm going to then stick my second one on the top and line it up. I'm going to do the same on the smaller ones. And you need to choose which is your top, which is your bottom. And again, I'm going to layer that one on the top. The next thing you want to do is I'm just going to fold it over with my nail. And I like to just take my bone folder and kind of fold those wings, tease them up a little bit, tease them down, just so that you get that lovely effect to them. Of course, if you sent these in the mail, they may get a little bit squashed, but you could also put a little bit of foam just as a protective layer within the envelope. And I often just leave a little direction to fluff them up on arrival. So I will lift this up. So that is your first butterfly. Oh, let's make sure that's in shot there. And it will refocus in just a second. But I'm going to start just turning it a little bit so that you can see there. There we go. So you can see there how beautiful that looks and how 3D it looks between all those different things. And then I'm going to do the same on this bottom one. So again, I'm going to fold the wings. And I'm just going to take it over my bone folder to add those 3D effects. Like this. And I really want these to stand up. And then again, I'm just going to attach them with some glue dots. So I'm going to pick up 2 glue dots, one for each dragonfly. And they seem to stick to me more than the vellum, but there we are. So they are now stuck on there. And you'll find if you do have gel nails like mine, they will stick to you really well. So we're now going to put our dragonflies down, and I always just like to hold them down and just see how they look first of all. And of course we can play around with the dragonfly wings. And once you're happy with them, you can then press down the centre. I often just get my bone folder and give it a really good press in the centre. And also that will help you kind of play around with those wings to get them to stand up. And I'm going to do the same on this one here. Again, I'm just going to go in and stand these wings back up. Now I would recommend, if you're going to mail this in particular, just leave it overnight for those glue dots to cure. They do dry, and they dry really solid and really nicely. Again, I'm going to lift this up so you can have a nice look at it, and you can see there all the dimension we have as well. So if you leave those to cure, they'll be far more secure to mail off, and you can grab you can see there all of that gorgeous metallic that's on there. We've got the metallic in the background, and we've got the copper both in the embossing powder and on these stunning butterflies as well. So I hope you've enjoyed Sunday stamping here with me at Hedgehog Hollow. Do click the subscribe buttons that are coming up on your screen, both for Hedgehog Hollow and for Elizabeth Craft Designs. And I will see you again next month here at Elizabeth Craft for another Sunday stamping feature. See you soon. Happy stamping. Bye.